When my daughter forged my signature to steal the family land, I didn't shout. I didn't confront her. I didn't even call. I walked into my study, opened the bottom drawer, and pulled out the envelope she had forgotten existed. She thought the land was hers. She thought I was too old, too soft, too tired to notice. She was wrong. The call came at 9:37 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee, watching a squirrel dismantle the bird feeder I just refilled. Routine, quiet. My phone rang, and the number was local but unfamiliar. I almost didn't pick up. "Mr. Devlin," said the voice on the other end, smooth and overly practiced. "This is Benjamin Holt from Ellison and Rowe. I'm calling to confirm the transfer of parcel 14B to your daughter, Madison Devlin. We received the deed this morning with your countersignature." My fingers curled around the ceramic mug. The name, parcel 14B, hit harder than the voice behind it. My grandfather's land. The only part of the estate I'd never mortgaged, never sold, never even touched. It was meant for after I died. For Madison, yes, but not like this. "I'm sorry, what signature?" I said slowly, keeping my voice flat. There was a pause, then papers rustling. "We have a notarized signature here, dated last Friday. Says here you signed in person at the Springfield branch." I hadn't been to Springfield in over a year. I ended the call without another word. In the silence that followed, I sat still for a long time. I looked at the calendar on the wall, the red circle around the 19th, her birthday. Last week. She'd come for lunch. She'd smiled. She'd hugged me like nothing was wrong. Now I knew why she'd visited. That night, I opened the drawer in my study where I kept the original land agreement, the one we'd signed together 10 years ago when she promised to care for it, preserve it, pass it down. The one that included a clause I never told her about. A clause that made everything she'd just done reversible, if I acted before the end of the fiscal quarter. She thought I'd forget what mattered. She didn't know what I remembered. This wasn't about land. This was about legacy. And I was about to remind her what Devlins do when someone tries to rewrite history with ink and greed. I didn't sleep that night, not out of anger but calculation. I sat at my desk under a dim brass lamp, the kind Madison used to say made the house smell like old libraries and regret. And I reread the deed, every line, every margin note, every loophole. Madison had always been clever. Too clever, maybe. Honor student, law school, internship at a firm that made partner-track promises to girls with sharp suits and sharper tongues. But clever isn't the same as wise. She knew the law, but she didn't know her father. 10 years ago, when she begged me to let her be co-owner of the Devlin tract, I'd agreed with conditions. Not out of distrust, but insurance. I added an amendment, buried in the language, that the land could not legally transfer or be subdivided without both owners' living consent. Forgery invalidated the contract immediately. I had it notarized by a friend. Quietly, she signed the version I showed her, but the real document was filed under Devlin Addenda, sealed, and tucked into the drawer she never noticed. The clause gave me 30 days to contest unauthorized transfer from the date of action. Last Friday was day 0. That made today, Tuesday, day 5. I had 25 left. Plenty of time. I didn't call Madison. I didn't accuse. Instead, I drove 2 hours south to Jasper County Courthouse. I phoned ahead. Geraldine at Records had pulled the file. When I walked into the marble lobby, she was waiting with a stack of copies and a face that looked like it had something to say. "Your girl's signature's clean," she said softly, as she handed me the papers. "Notarized by someone out of Lexington. You know a Dana Mars?" "No," I said, but I noted the name. Back home, I scanned everything, her forged documents, the notary license copy, the new deed, the trust paperwork, and I placed them in a manila folder next to the original agreement. 2 versions of history, one true, one polished for theft. At 11:42 p.m., I texted her for the first time in months. "Mads, we need to talk about the land. Soon." No response. At 11:46, I got a notification. She'd opened the message. At 11:51, she blocked me. Not ignored. Blocked. That's when I knew this wasn't an accident. This wasn't youthful arrogance. This was war, and she thought she'd already won. By Wednesday morning, I'd made my decision. I wouldn't confront her. Not yet. No angry voicemails. No dramatic doorstep scenes. This wasn't going to be emotional. This was going to be architectural, planned, measured, and irreversible. I started with Dana Mars. She was easy to find. A junior notary working out of a strip mall insurance office on the edge of Lexington. Her credentials were technically clean, but her Yelp reviews weren't. Sloppy with paperwork. One client claimed she'd notarized a power of attorney without ID. Another mentioned a cash fee arrangement. I called her office under a false name and asked if she did mobile signings. She said yes. I asked if she remembered working with Madison Devlin. There was a pause. Then, not off the top of my head. She was lying. I knew it. And now so did she. By 2 p.m. I had a copy of her notary ledger from a friendly clerk at the county registry. Madison's name was there, dated Friday with my name listed as a cosigner. Fake address. Fake license number. Dana had notarized a ghost. That was my in. Back in 2008, I helped build a municipal office complex for the county. I knew who to call when it came to ethics violations. I drafted a formal complaint against Mars, attached the evidence, and overnighted it to the State Notary Commission. If her certification was suspended, and it would be any document she'd notarized could be challenged. One brick removed from the base. I didn't stop there. Next, I contacted an old friend, Callum Barrett, who now worked at Greeley & Finch, the same firm where Madison had interned. I told him nothing about the situation, just that I needed a private forensic analysis of a signature. He owed me a favor, 3 actually. He agreed. By Friday, Callum had confirmed what I already knew. The signature wasn't mine. Too smooth. No hesitation. Mine had a tell, an upward tick on the D in Devlin. Hers didn't. She had faked it with confidence. That was her mistake. At 7:03 p.m. that night, I drove past Madison's new townhouse. Lights on. Cars in the driveway. I parked across the street, unseen, and watched her carry 2 boxes of wine inside. Hosting. Laughing. Peace. She thought the storm had passed. She hadn't even noticed the sky darkening. The first domino fell Monday morning at 8:16 a.m. Dana Mars's notary license was officially suspended pending investigation. I received the notice by email, blind carbon copied through a clerk I'd gone fishing with for 30 years. The seal on Madison's forged deed was now worthless. But I didn't tell her. Not yet. Instead, I sent an anonymous tip to the compliance officer at her firm. A simple PDF. Notarized deed. Forged signature. Invalid notary stamp. No commentary, no context. Just enough to make them ask questions. Let her explain to her boss why she'd acquired family property with legally defective paperwork. I knew that would rattle her. Madison's life was built on presentation, law firm, social circle, curated existence. She had an image to protect, and I was about to show her how fragile that image was. By noon, she called from a different number. I let it go to voicemail. Dad, we need to talk. I don't know what you're doing or why, but I think we both know this is getting out of hand. Let's be civil about this. I'm willing to revisit some things. Call me. It wasn't an apology. It was fear dressed as diplomacy. I still didn't respond. At 2:47 p.m., she emailed. The subject line, "We can work this out." Inside, 3 paragraphs of legalese she clearly didn't write herself. Talk of good faith resolution, property equity reconsideration, amicable dissolution of deed. Her firm was nervous. Good. Let them be. But the best part was at the bottom. Please do not take this public. It wouldn't benefit either of us. There it was. The threat disguised as a plea. The fear that someone, anyone, might find out the golden girl of Barrett and Sloan tried to rob her own father blind. I didn't write back. Instead, I printed the email and added it to my file. Alongside the forged deed. Alongside the suspended notary records. Alongside the original clause she never knew existed. By that evening, I'd spoken to an estate attorney in Jefferson who specialized in revocation under concealed fraud. I sent him the file. He read everything twice and then said, "Mr. Devlin, this is one of the cleanest cases I've seen. She's cooked." "No," I said. "She's marinating," because I wasn't ready to serve the dish yet. First, I needed one final ingredient. A witness. I found my witness 2 towns over, in a modest retirement community off Route 47. His name was Curtis Lyle, 81 years old, hard of hearing, sharp as hell. He'd been the notary on the real deed. 10 years ago, back when Madison still wore ponytails and called me Daddy instead of Devlin, Curtis had notarized the original agreement with that hidden clause. He still remembered it. "You told me she'd thank you someday for protecting her from herself," he said, squinting at me over thick bifocals. "Looks like today ain't that day." I asked if he'd be willing to sign a sworn affidavit, confirming he notarized the version with the restrictive clause. He didn't hesitate. "You saved my son's business in '97, he said. "You think I forgot that?" He signed it that same afternoon. We had it notarized legally and filed with the court by 5 p.m. I now had everything I needed: the forgery, the invalid notary, the original clause, and a living witness. Every move she made was now reversible by law. But I didn't reverse them yet. I let her live in the illusion a little longer. That night, I drove past her house again. Her windows were dark this time, curtains drawn. A sliver of light leaked through the edges. She was home. She knew I was moving, and she was waiting for me to strike. She thought I'd make this ugly public. She didn't understand. This wasn't about embarrassment. This was about precision. I wanted her to feel the floor shift beneath her feet, 1 inch at a time. Not a collapse. A slow, controlled descent into the consequences she never thought would come. At 8:03 a.m. the next morning, I had the estate attorney file a temporary injunction on all activity related to Parcel 14B. The clerk's office issued the freeze within the hour. No further sales. No construction. No leasing. No use. Madison got the notification by courier at her office. She responded exactly how I expected. A single-line email at 10:29 a.m. "You just made a very big mistake." No explanation. No apology. I didn't reply. At 11:07, her assistant called mine. Wanted to schedule a meeting. I declined. Let her stew. Let her understand that she wasn't dealing with the father who sent her birthday checks and bite-sized advice. She was dealing with the man who built his name brick by brick. And now he was dismantling hers. By Thursday, the tone of her messages had changed. Gone were the veiled threats and corporate platitudes. They'd been replaced with something colder: legal formality. I received a notice through her firm. Madison was officially contesting the injunction. She was trying to argue I had previously relinquished all active rights to Parcel 14B. I smiled when I read that phrase, because I knew exactly what it meant. It meant she'd just fired her first real bullet. The gloves were off. She thought she could bury me in process and paper. And maybe she could have, if I hadn't spent the last 4 decades navigating permits, contractors, and corrupt county inspectors. I played this game longer than she'd been alive. She was swinging in a ring I built. That afternoon, I updated my will. Madison Devlin was formally removed as heir to any Devlin-owned property, including, but not limited to, the farmland, the trust fund, and all mineral rights associated with the North Ridge Tract. Everything in total valued at just under $4. $2 million. My lawyer, Margaret, reviewed the revisions without comment. When she finished, she just looked at me and said, "You sure?" I nodded. "She used my name like a crowbar," I said. "Let her live outside it." By evening, the new will was signed and sealed. 2 witnesses, filed and time-stamped. I didn't send her a copy. I wanted her to find out the same way I had, through someone else's paperwork. That night, for the first time in 2 weeks, I slept without waking. When I checked her social media the next morning, it was scrubbed. No property photos. No victory captions. Her friends, the ones who used to like every update, had gone quiet. Then, around noon, a message arrived. Not from her. From her fiancé. Mr. Devlin, this is Carter. I know things have gotten tense, but I'm hoping there's still room for dialogue. Maddie's going through a lot. Maybe we could meet, man to man. I didn't answer right away. I poured a cup of coffee, took it to the porch, let the autumn wind press against my back. Then I wrote back, I'll meet, but only if she brings the pen she forged my name with. I'd like to see what it looks like in person. No reply. By dusk, I knew what was coming. She wasn't going to fold. She was going to escalate, and that was exactly what I wanted. It happened sooner than I expected. Sunday morning, I was finishing my third cup of coffee and organizing invoices when a message from an old friend hit my inbox. Subject line, "You're in the paper." Attached was a PDF scan of a glossy Sunday business supplement. I clicked it open, already knowing what I'd find. There she was, Madison Devlin, standing in front of parcel 14B in a fitted blazer, arms crossed, beneath the headline, "Next-Gen Legal Pioneer Reclaims Her Legacy." The article was glowing, full of buzzwords like resilience, inheritance mismanagement, empowered reclamation. The story painted me as a confused, aging patriarch too blinded by tradition to see the future. She didn't mention my name directly. She didn't have to. Anyone in this county would connect the dots. Her firm had clearly helped push the piece out, probably even ghostwritten it. The message was simple. This land belongs to me now, and no dusty old man can take it back. She had made her move, so I made mine. At 11:32 a.m., I delivered a flash drive to the same paper. No statement, no notes, just a drive labeled, "Correction Material." Inside, PDFs of the original notarized deed from 10 years ago, Curtis Lyle's affidavit, the notary suspension letter, the forensic signature analysis, and a copy of her firm's own ethics guidelines on forged documentation. The editor didn't even wait 24 hours. By Monday morning, the online article was amended with a nervous disclaimer. This story is under review following newly submitted documentation regarding ownership disputes. By Tuesday, it was pulled completely. I didn't hear from Madison, but her fiancé emailed again. "Mr. Devlin, whatever point you're making, it's made. We're hemorrhaging credibility. The firm is furious. She might lose her position. I'm asking you as a human being. Stop this before it goes further." I read his message twice. Then I replied. I started with a conversation. She responded with a forgery. You don't get to forge someone's signature and then ask them for mercy. He didn't write again. Later that day, my attorney called. "We've received a settlement offer," she said. "They're offering to dissolve the deed transfer, drop all challenges, and file a public correction, so long as you don't pursue criminal charges or malpractice filings. And if I say no?" She paused. "Then we file and it becomes case law." I didn't decide immediately. I let the silence stretch until nightfall. I wanted her to think about it, deeply, privately. I wanted her to remember the first rule I ever taught her about the land, that nothing built on stolen ground ever stands for long. She called that night. Not her assistant, not her fiancé, not the firm's damage control rep. Her. It was 11:12 p.m. I was in bed, half reading a paperback I'd started months ago, when the screen lit up with a number I hadn't seen since the day she blocked me. I let it ring twice, then answered. "Madison," I said flatly. Her voice was small, not weak, but stripped down. No polish, no edge. "Dad, I messed up." I didn't reply. "You don't have to say it. I know. I thought I could handle it. I thought if I got the land in my name, I could protect it, grow it. I wanted it to be mine before someone else got their hands on it." "Before who?" There was a long pause. Then, "Carter's family. They've been pushing me, for months, talking about development rights, solar leases, fracking offers. His father's got connections with a syndicate out of Atlanta. They said I was sitting on dormant capital, that I needed control. And so you forged your father's name. I didn't think it would matter if I fixed it later." "Fixed it?" I asked. My voice was ice. "You mean after you sold it?" Another silence. Not denial, just shame. I never planned to sell the whole thing. Just a portion. The lower ridge. They were offering 7 figures. I thought if I secured the deed early, we could make it clean. I closed the book on my chest. You thought you'd betray your bloodline cleanly. I thought I was protecting a future. Ours. Mine. I didn't think you'd notice, I said. She didn't respond. Madison, I've known that land longer than I've known you. I buried my father's watch under the northeast fence post when I was 12. I carved your mother's initials into the oak tree behind the barn the week before I proposed. That soil raised 3 generations of Devlins, and you tried to trade it for a check and a seat at Carter's family table. Her breath hitched. I was going to tell you, she whispered. You already did, I said. In ink. The silence stretched again, this time heavier, thicker. She wasn't crying, but she wasn't breathing right either. Dad, I'm sorry. I believe you. You do. Yes, but this isn't about sorry. Then what is it about? I paused. It's about consequences. And then I ended the call. No yelling, no threat, just a door closed, calmly, forever. By Thursday morning, the settlement agreement was sitting on my desk, emailed over by her firm's senior partner, not Madison. The language was neutral as expected, clinical, almost robotic. Party A agrees to nullify the unauthorized deed transfer. Party B agrees to forgo all criminal or civil proceedings. Mutual non-disparagement clause to be enacted immediately. In other words, we give it back, you don't destroy her. I read it slowly twice. It was everything I wanted. And not nearly enough. I called Margaret, my lawyer, and asked one question. Can we add a clause? Depends what you want, Walter. I want her name off every record. I want it written that she forfeits all future claims to the Devlin properties. That this was not a misunderstanding, it was fraud. And I want it notarized by a name that won't be revoked in a month. Margaret didn't even flinch. Done. She revised the terms, redlined the weak parts, added what needed to be added. We sent it back with 48 hours to sign. Madison returned the documents the next day, 3 minutes before the deadline. Her signature this time was real. I could tell. No flourish, no confidence. Just ink from a different kind of pen, the kind that stains even when it fades. The land was mine again. The injunction was lifted. The case was sealed and stamped as resolved without admission of wrongdoing. But she knew, and I knew, and the land knew. At dusk, I drove out to Parcel 14B. The wind was heavy with memory. The fields were dry, just like they were the summer my father died. I walked the perimeter fence with a thermos of coffee and the new deed folded in my coat pocket. She had tried to erase me, but soil doesn't forget the hands that shaped it. At the north tree line, I stopped beneath the oak where her mother's initials were still faintly carved. I reached into my pocket and removed the folded photo I kept there. Madison at age 10, covered in mud, grinning in overalls, one boot missing. The last time she loved this place for what it was, not what it could earn her. I didn't cry. I just tucked the photo into the hollow of the tree. Let it sleep there, like something buried but not forgotten. Back at the truck, I opened my notebook and crossed off a single line I'd written 2 weeks earlier. Reclaim legacy. Done. But there was still one chapter left. The one she'd never read. I didn't send a response. No text. No email. No call. What I did send was a letter, handwritten, sealed, and delivered by certified mail. It arrived on a Tuesday. No note from a lawyer. No courier signature. Just an envelope with her name, and inside, for pages of steady handwriting. I started it simply, Madison, I accept your apology, but that does not mean I forget. I told her I remembered the little girl who used to ride on my shoulders through those fields, screaming with laughter when she saw rabbits dart from the tall grass. I remembered the birthday she cried because the rain ruined her party, and how we danced in the mud instead. I remembered the college acceptance letter she handed me first, beaming, before calling anyone else. I told her those memories still lived in me. But so did the Thursday she forged my name. So did the article in the paper. the silence when I first texted her, the carefully worded threats she wrote behind her firm stationery. Love and trust are not the same, Maddie. I wrote, love survives betrayal. Trust doesn't. I explained that the Devlin land would pass to a conservatorship, one meant to protect it from further family manipulation. It would be held for her children, if she ever had them. But she would not touch it. Not a square foot. Not a blade of grass. They'll inherit a field you nearly lost, I wrote. And they'll know exactly why. I ended the letter with a line my father once wrote to me, the day I refused a safe career in favor of digging ditches for money. We don't build our name with what we take. We build it with what we leave behind. Then I folded the letter and sealed it. No signature. Just my initials. W. D. And the date. She didn't reply, but a week later a check arrived. No note. No return address. Just a personal check for $2,750. The exact amount the notary Dana Mars charged for the false paperwork, plus overnight filing fees. It wasn't restitution. It was acknowledgement. I deposited it. Then I walked out to the oak again, stood by that hollow where the photograph lay, and whispered the words I hadn't allowed myself to say in weeks. I forgive you, not for her. For me, because I had reclaimed more than land. I had reclaimed my name, and it would never again be written by someone else's hand.